Following Vistara's merger with Air India, Tata SIA Airlines announced that flights scheduled until November 11, 2024 can still be booked via the Vistara platform until September 3rd, 2024. Now, after November 11, 2024, Vistara's fleet will fully integrate into Air India's operations. Air India will handle all remaining Vistara bookings from that date. The upcoming merger between Air India and Vistara is set to reshape India's aviation industry, creating a near-duopoly with Indigo. This consolidation is expected to reduce competition, particularly in the premium passenger segment, where both Air India and Vistara have established strongholds. The merger also raises concerns about potential price collusion between the two dominant air carriers. With their significant market power, Air India, Vistara and Indigo could indirectly coordinate pricing strategies, leading to inflated ticket prices, especially during peak travel periods. So the big question that we need to in fact take, however, is that should the government put a ceiling on the prices per sector, and should GST be reduced on air tickets? What FDI revisions are required for more competition to be in the sector, and will more airports and more aircraft reduce the supply burden? Will there be any fluctuations in the ticket pricing? Well, to discuss more on this, we are joined in by Jitendra Bhargava, author and former Executive Director, Air India. Jitendra, first, the big question that we would like to ask is that what does it mean for the Indian aviation sector? It looks like there's a consolidation in the skies and the fear of a duopoly. But is that all, or is it just, part of industrial growth? You have consolidations, you have expansions. Is it something that we need to be worried about, or something that we just see part of the industry's growth?
No, one shouldn't get worried, but look at it from two perspectives. One, from the general perspective of aviation, you say there'll be fewer carriers available for competing in the Indian skies or globally for that matter. The second is looking at from the Tata's, the owner's perspective. Is it desirable for Tata's to have two airlines flying on the same sectors and competing with each other? The answer is no. So it's a very natural merger that's taking place between Air India and Vistara. Had the government of India disinvested Air India prior to 2015, probably Vistara wouldn't have come, and Air India would have been under the Tata state. Now let's look at it. Why is it essential? Now, Air India has been on the domestic sector, the global sector. Indigo has monopolized the domestic sector with 60% plus market share. Air India and Vistara have each been between 10 to 11, 12% on the domestic sector. Now, what you need on the domestic sector is a formidable player who can really be competing with Indigo or give Indigo a run for the money. If you were splintered into 4 or 5 airlines and no airline accounting for 11%, Indigo would never have taken it seriously. So the lesson is, it's good from the customer's perspective that you have a formidable player who will be commanding something like 28 to 30% of the domestic market share. Now move on to the international sector. We all know that Emirates, Etihad, Cathay Pacific, Kuwait Airlines, you take any of the European Mid East airlines who have been taking away the Indian originating traffic, either India bound or originating Indian traffic, and flying them over their respective hubs for destinations in Europe and United States. Because Air India as a government airline did not grow till 2022. Air India has placed a huge order of 470 aircraft. Now you cannot have Vistara flying to London as also Air India flying to London. So the merger is in place. It's a natural thing that takes place. Now what is good from the Indian aviation is that once you have a mega carrier with a large fleet, large network, you will be able to fly and sell Etihad and Emirates and these airlines who were hitherto siphoning Indian traffic over their respective hubs because Air India did not have the aircraft. So we are looking at the future now. Come 2026-27, when a large number of the aircraft ordered by Air India would have been inducted. Now what would happen would be, as of today, Air India largely operates in international services from Delhi and Mumbai. So why would a passenger originating out of Hyderabad or Chennai or Kolkata come to Delhi and Bombay and then take the international flight? This large induction of aircraft would ensure that you'll have direct flights out of these mega metros, cities in India, to destinations in the United States. So what we are looking forward to is the weakness that Indian aviation had, because Air India was not a formidable player and therefore being dominated by the Gulf and Southeast Asian carriers, or even European carriers for that matter, would now have Indian carriers operating. And as we all know, that even Indigo has ordered large capacity aircraft, ultra long haul aircraft they'll be inducting in 2027. So you'll have a very formidable Indian aviation flying and erasing the kind of past history that we have had of domination by foreign carriers. And one great advantage that comes in when Indian carriers dominate the Indian skies is that all employment opportunities will be created in India. It will
So,
be
but this
Indian
question is
carriers
there.
reaping the
If you look
advantage
at,
of market growth.
sorry to break the conversation out there, but I just wanted to ask is that there's this fear among a lot of flyers, especially those who think that the pricing factor is now going to be an issue, because when you have a lot of players in the market, of course, when you have 6 or 7 of them, there could be competition. But now, with technically a near duopoly happening, it is going to be a question about those who were looking for the low cost, aircraft flying experience. It worked as a lot. A lot of Indians started flying because of that concept. But in the long run, it didn't seem to be quite sustainable. You saw a lot of them just falling off the air with their models. But what exactly is there? Can there be a low-cost air carrier as we see it? A working model that probably just for regional routes or something like that, so that again there could be more choice for the flyer as such.
You see, let's view the market for the last 5 years. Indigo's domination has grown, and now with SpiceJet also showing signs of fatigue, strain, or may not survive very long, Indigo will only increase its market share, because almost 80% of India's domestic market is monopolized by the low-cost airlines. And both Air India and Vistara are not low-cost airlines. And what we normally say low-cost airlines, basically low fare, because the cost of operation is lower than a full legacy carriers. Let's look at why is it so. When you have an aircraft of Air India Vistara, you get more leg space. So Indigo is able to accommodate more number of seats on the same kind of aircraft than Air India or Vistara, as a result of which they can offer lower fares in the market. But rest of the thing that we have is primarily the airports. The charges are the same. The fuel charges are the same. Landing, taking off charges are the same, except that they gain because they have a smaller number of crew. They don't serve meals. Their cost of operation is lower. But then, if we look at when we had 5, 6 carriers operating on the Indian skies, they were competing with each other, offering lower fares. And what was the outcome? You had Kingfisher, a quality airline, perishing. Naresh Goyal Jet Airways, following the same route. Go First last year, doing the same thing. Now, there is not something that one says is wrong with the Indian aviation. It's primarily the business model that you have. SpiceJet has 90% plus load factor. And we all know the past 1.5 years, the fare levels have been relatively higher. So there is no reason why a company like airline like SpiceJet should be suffering losses, not being able to recover operational costs, and showing signs of fatigue. You see, unfortunate part is that only 2 years ago, SpiceJet was operating, they operated in the month of May 2022, 11,000 flights. They are down last month in July to 3,100 flights. From flying 11,500 lakh passengers to flying a mere 4 lakh passengers. Now, what do you blame it on? You have to reduce your cost of operation. You've got to be competitive. You've got to have a right business model. You need to have a calibrated growth. Now, if you recklessly grow, it's slightest opportunity you cannot. Indigo is a shining example, a low-cost airline making huge money. They've got multiple services on each sector. They've been growing their fleet. So their fixed cost is spread over a larger number of passengers. Why can't other low-cost carriers replicate the same thing? And my normal comment on this has been, when you have a promoter-driven airline, you really do not get the feedback when are difficult or turbulent times coming ahead or the headwinds are rocking the aircraft. So
Well,
there is a time, proper time to exit, proper time to merge. Now with SpiceJet having a mere 5% of the market share, tell me how does it become a lucrative proposition for another carrier to put in money or to acquire the airline? So when you look at Air India and Vistara with a commanding number 2 market share on the domestic sector, but the leading player on the international sector. And that is where it makes eminent sense for Air India and Vistara to merge.
right. Thank you, Jitendra, for in fact speaking to News 9 and giving us an insight about what is mean with this merger in the Indian aviation industry. Of course, as you said, everything is not what to be looked at worrisome, but a part of the aviation sector's growth that we see. And of course, Indian airlines dominating Indian skies, trying to get onto those passengers who have been taken away by foreign airliners, and that is something that this particular merger could in fact address to.